Start now.
It's great to have Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School to the show once again. This is his third appearance on Unlicensed Philosophy podcast. Today we're paying tribute to the late great Senator Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut. How are you today, Alan? Thank you for joining us.
Well, sad about Joe's death. I was working with him on a statement about Israel and about the Democratic Party, literally just hours before he fell and just a day before he died.
And that statement one can find on the pages of the Wall Street Journal, and it is, like Senator Lieberman himself, fantastic and magnificent.
Yeah, no, I was pleased to be able to publish it. Joe and I had a joint concern that the Democratic Party was capitulating to the hard, radical anti-American left wing of the party, the squad, the people who really support not only death to Israel, but death to America. And we were very concerned that bipartisan support for Israel, which has been characterized by American politics since 1948, was being destroyed by the hard left that doesn't care about America. It only cares about its own anarchist socialist principles. And so we were sending a polite warning to the Democratic Party, don't give up on Israel because of a few voters who would otherwise stay home. It's a terrible tragedy for America that we lost Joe. He was one of the few people who could bring the country together. As you know, he's the only person, I think, really in modern times to be offered. He was the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats, and he was being considered to be a vice presidential nominee for the Republicans as well. He crossed party lines all the time to try to do what's best for America. And there are too few politicians today who apply that standard.
Yes, in regards to his presidential stances, I'd like to focus on, well, his 2000 campaign where he was listed as a running mate with Al Gore. Of course, the election was a very tense one, and the victory went to Bush after a very controversial Supreme Court decision. So how did Senator Joe reflect on that?
Well, we all thought the Democrats had won the election. More people in Florida intended to vote for the Gore-Lieberman ticket than for the Bush ticket. What happened is because of something called the butterfly ballot. The holes where you punch were put in the wrong place, and hundreds, maybe even thousands of people who wanted to vote for the Gore-Lieberman ticket ended up casting their vote, of all people, for Pat Buchanan, who particularly many Jewish voters in Palm Beach County did that. And of course, Pat Buchanan was well known as an anti-Semite, anti-Israel, somebody who no reasonable Jew would ever cast a vote for, but he got a lot of votes in Palm Beach County. And if those votes had gone to Gore and Lieberman, they would have won the election. So, I mean, the difference, of course, between them and Trump is that they, for the benefit of the country, conceded the election, even though they honestly believed they had won, and I believe they had won. Whereas Trump, who lost, clearly wouldn't concede that he lost.
Now, on to 2008, Lieberman shocked his co-partyists by endorsing John McCain rather than Barack Obama. So what did he see in Barack Obama that was disagreeable compared to Senator McCain?
He saw something that I didn't see. I knew Barack Obama as a student at Harvard Law School, and I knew his wife, and I found them perfectly pleasant and nice, and I voted for him both times. I regret my second vote because he had deceived me and deceived the American public on his foreign policy. And I think that Joe saw that, and others saw that. I wasn't smart enough to see it. I wish I had seen it. I wish I had voted against Barack Obama, but I didn't. Joe did. And also, Joe experienced his own situation where he lost the Democratic nomination for the Senate and had to run as an independent. And that shook up the Democratic Party, too. Rightfully so. Joe was an independent guy. He saw things his own way, and he was always interested in what was best for America, not what was best for a particular political party. the priority he had was he was an American first, a Jew, and then a Democrat. But being Democrat was third on the list of identifications in his mind. Being an American and being Jewish were at the top of the list.
Now, soon after Senator Lieberman's passing, I read that National Review uh, endorsed his first campaign for the Senate. So National Review, this like conservative magazine, would endorse a Democrat against a Republican, which I find is a testament to, I suppose, Senator Lieberman's
Not aware of
political.
that. The National Review is a center right publication. It's not an extreme right publication, and founded by Buckley, and it reflected, it was to the Republicans as Joe Lieberman is to the Democrats. I mean, center, willing to jump party lines to do the right thing. And look, Joe was one of the greatest senators in modern history, and anybody who didn't endorse him was a fool.
Now, Senator Lieberman's statement before his last is his critique of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's call for, quote unquote, an Israeli election. So is this a sign that after October 7th, the flurry of support that the Democrats have for Israel began to reduce in size?
There's no question about that. And Chuck Schumer was one of the villains behind that. How dare he, a senator from New York, tell Israelis who to vote for or how to conduct their own democracy? I think virtually everybody condemned Schumer, even those people who themselves thought there should be an election in Israel, and people who are not supportive of Netanyahu were saying to Chuck Schumer, hey, stay out of this thing. You're not an Israeli. If you want to be an Israeli, come to Israel, become a citizen. Then you can tell Israelis when to conduct elections. Israel conducted 5 elections in 7 years. No democracy in the world has ever had as many elections in such a short period of time. The Israelis know how to conduct elections. They know how to conduct their democracy. They don't need absurd advice from an American senator.
Now, I should like to spend a few minutes talking about your latest book, War Against the Jews. The title is a curiosity because you wrote this after October 7th, and the endorsement from the president of Israel there. So Hamas went to war against Israel, but of course there are Jews living outside of Israel too, including the United States. Why do you believe that Hamas is going to war against, well, you as well as other New York Jews as well?
We know that Hamas has in the past targeted synagogues, targeted Jewish centers. We know Iran, which runs Hamas, blew up a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires. The Supreme Court of Argentina just found that a week ago or so, as a matter of law and as a matter of fact. So Hamas, Iran, Islamic Jihad are all declaring war against the Jews. If I had the title to write over again, I think I would now call it War Against the World, or War Against the West, because Hamas would never be satisfied just with destroying Israel, neither would Iran. Iran has said that. It wants essentially a caliphate around the world, and it doesn't believe that Christians and Jews have any rights. You got to be a Muslim, or else you will die by the sword. That's Hamas's attitude, and that's Iran's attitude. So it is very much a war against the Jews. And when even the October 7th, they killed everybody they could get their hands on, whether they were Israelis or not. Many non-Israelis died. People from foreign countries who were working in Israel died and were kidnapped. So it is very much a war against Israel, a war against the Jews, and a war against Western civilization.
Yes, of course, one should not forget that Hamas was also just as merciless to its Palestinians and Muslim citizens who disagree with their tyranny in Gaza as they are with Jewish
Well, it
people.
was no murdered members of the Palestinian Authority. They murder gay people. I know a group of gay anti-Israel people have denied that Hamas kills gay people or Iran kills gay people. They're just lying. It's like the people who deny that there were rapes on October 7th. When you're willing to put your anti-Israel feelings over your defense of gay rights or women's rights or other rights, it really shows the depth of your hatred toward Jews, toward Israel, and toward the Western world. Gays for Hamas are like chickens for KFC. You don't support a regime that will kill you. And we know, we have seen the photographs of gay people being thrown off the roof, or gay people being hanged, gay people being executed. And you don't have to be gay. All you have to do is refuse to wear the right religious garb, and you could be thrown into jail. And we know that happened in Iran, and there were protests by Iranians about that. I recently sat next to at dinner the crown prince of Iran, the Shah's son, the person who would, if the Shah hadn't been deposed, be the Shah today. And he was telling me the extent of hatred of the regime by typical Iranian decent people and citizens. And they're utterly repressed. When they try to protest, they're put in jail. Just before Iran sent 300 missiles into Israel, the first thing they did is they sent out the local police to suppress any demonstrations, because they knew there would be demonstrations, because there are a lot of people in Iran who actually support Israel and support America and hate the mullahs, but they can't express those views without risking their lives.
So given the division, just not only between the Republicans and the Democrats during this election year, 2024, but within the Republican and Democratic parties, how do you suppose that the parties shall be unified in support to the Jewish nation?
Well, one way of it happening is if the Democrats continue to oppose Israel and then lose the election. That would send a powerful message to both parties that most Americans support Israel, and you risk losing elections if you put the anti-Israel voters in Michigan ahead of the pro-Israel voters in Pennsylvania and Florida and Arizona and Nevada. Remember, too, that in Dearborn, Michigan, just the other day, when there was an anti-Israel demonstration, the main speaker was calling for death to America, death to America. And these are the people who the Democrats want to vote for them. I would not want anybody who calls for death for America to vote for my party. I would rather have them stay home. And the idea that Biden is trying to pander to those voters who he'll never satisfy, they don't want a ceasefire. Many of the same demonstrators were out on the street applauding Iran for sending 300 missiles to Israel. These are not people who are in favor of peace. These are not people who are in favor of a ceasefire. They're only in favor of Hamas and against Israel, no matter what the manifestation is.
Now, it has been 6 months into the war since October the 7th began. So speaking as a legal scholar, to what extent is Israel's action in the Strip just?
Well, Israel is engaged in actions more justified than any country in modern history trying to fight terrorism in urban context where human shields are used. So far fewer civilians have been killed than were killed by America and Britain and other allied troops in Afghanistan and in Iraq. The ratio of combatants to civilians is the best in Israel than in any country in modern history. So Israel's getting a bum rap on conducting the war. It's made mistakes. Obviously, the killing of the AIDS workers from the World Kitchen was a terrible, terrible mistake, almost as bad as the mistake the United States made when it went after somebody it thought was a terrorist, killed him and his whole family, including young children. The United States apologized. It was a one-day story. But for Israel, it caused all kinds of repercussions, and it became a multi-day story, and it would have continued but for Iran's attack on Israel. So there is a double standard being applied to the nation state of the Jewish people.
Now that Iran has entered the battle, does this reveal Iran's true intentions?
Well, first of all, Iran entered the battle back in the 1990s when it attacked Israel's embassy in Buenos Aires. The Supreme Court of Argentina just found, as a matter of fact, in law, that it was Iran that bombed the Israeli embassy. Embassy, not even a building like the one in Damascus. The embassy itself, killing 23 innocent people, non-combatants. None of them were soldiers. Whereas what Israel did is it went after 7 military leaders who were misusing a consular annex building to protect themselves. And once a combatant enters into a building, even if it's a diplomatic building, that combatant becomes fair game, and he can't hide behind diplomacy.
Now, back to Senator Lieberman. So, in his final campaign for senator, he ran as an independent. So, aside from his differences with the larger Democratic Party as a whole in regards to Israel, was there any other political issues that he finds to be deviating from the Democrats?
Yeah, I think he just found the Democrats moving too far to the left on a range of issues, largely foreign policy issues, but other issues as well. I mean, he was an independent, and he was right to run as an independent because that's who he really is, and the voters understood that, and the voters voted for him as an independent, and he won as an independent, and so that was a good thing.
Now, assuming that the war with Hamas will end, preferably with a favorable outcome, what do you suppose the political landscape of Israel will change?
Well, I think there'll be another election soon in Israel, and I think Netanyahu is going to have a hard time winning. He's being held responsible, obviously, as the prime minister for what happened on October 7th. And no prime minister could ever survive that. Survive it, and I don't think he could survive it as well.
Two final quick questions.
Sure.
Is the Democratic Party still a viable electoral option for American Jews?
It's and I keep an open mind, and I hope that we can push the Democratic Party closer to mainstream, closer to support for Israel, and to reject the anti-American and anti-Israel and anti-Semitic wing of the Democratic Party.
Of course, aside from that, what should Joe Biden do in order to be reelected?
Well, he should support Israel strongly, and then he'll win in Pennsylvania and in Nevada and in Florida. And Florida is a tough case, but he might, and Arizona, and that will help him get elected.
Okay. Well, it's always good to have you, Alan Dershowitz. Thank you for joining the show.